Now I'm going to show you how server socket class works using an example. I'm going to instantiate a new server socket. I'm going to do server socket, let's say server equals new server socket, and its constructor takes an integer. The integer represents the port number. A port number of 0 means that the port number is automatically allocated, typically from an ephemeral port range. I'm going to run this server on port 9090. The server socket throws input-output exception, so I'm going to use try-catch blocks. The constructor for server socket throws an exception if it can't listen on the specified port. For example, the port is already being used by another application, and in the catch block, print port is open. If the server successfully binds to its port, then the server socket object is successfully created and the server can continue to the next step, waiting clients to connect. I'm gonna do that in a future lesson. Now open your command prompt and you can list all listening ports by typing netstat-a. The command shows all the listening ports on your computer. For example, 135 and 445 are open ports. They are on listening state. If I run the code right now, everything works fine. But if I use an already open port, let's say 135, run again, and I get port is open. The server object cannot be created. A port scanner is used by a network administrator for network security purposes or a hacker to identify services running on a host and exploit vulnerabilities. If you know what ports are open in your PC, you will be able to anticipate what type of attacks your PC can suffer from via the internet. I'm gonna add an integer here, integer port equals, we are gonna start with port 1. And then I'm gonna use a while loop which iterates as long as port is less than 65,535, which is the maximum value of the port I can assign on my socket. Increment the port value and test for each port. So for each port, server socket is trying to bind the port. If the port is not used by another application, the catch block won't be executed. Otherwise, if the port is already being used by another application, throws an exception which is handled by the catch block. The catch block will print which port is listening on. Port is open. Now let's run the file. Great! In the console there are displayed all listening ports. This output is similar with what we've got in the Windows console. Using this method you can scan for open ports on your local machine, but it's more interesting to scan open ports of a remote host. Let's say you have the IP address of a remote host. That host can be anywhere on internet and you can scan its ports as long as remote host IP address is reachable. I'm going to show you how to do that in a next lesson.